Commander Taemin Park walked slowly through the dark hallways of the research station. The red warning lights made everything look scary and strange. His boots made loud sounds on the metal floor as he hurried toward the main lab 3 months ago. His team had found something impossible buried deep under the moon's surface. Now that impossible thing was finally waking up. The research station orbited around Earth like a giant metal bird. Taemin had been the commander here for 2 years, but nothing had prepared him for what they discovered in that deep hole on the moon. The object was huge and made of materials that seemed to eat light itself when they brought it back to the station. Every scientist wanted to study it, but nobody could understand how it worked. Dr. Sora Kim was waiting for him in the main lab. She was the best scientist on the station and the only person who could make sense of alien biology. Her hands were shaking as she held her tablet. The numbers on the screen were dancing and changing every second. Something big was happening inside that strange chamber. "Commander, the life signs are getting stronger," Sora said without looking up from her work. "Whatever is inside there is definitely human, but the readings are impossible. The chamber is over 3,000 years old, but the person inside is still alive." "How is that even possible?" Taemin stared at the massive pod in the center of the room. It was twice as tall as a person and shaped like a giant egg. The surface was smooth and dark, but sometimes it seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols covered the outside, but nobody could read them. They looked like they were written by someone who understood science far better than any human today. Engineer Minho Choi was working on the power systems that connected to the chamber. His face was covered in sweat as he tried to understand the alien technology. "Commander, this thing is drawing power from sources I cannot identify. It is like it is pulling energy from empty space itself. I have never seen anything like it." Dr. Ji Woo Lee stood near the wall reading from a thick book. He was the station's historian, and he spent most of his time studying old records and ancient stories. "I have been looking through every historical record we have," he said quietly. "There is no mention of technology like this anywhere in human history. It is like this chamber comes from a completely different civilization." Suddenly the chamber started making new sounds. Deep humming noises came from inside, and the strange symbols began to glow brighter. Steam started coming out of cracks that appeared along the edges. Everyone in the lab stopped what they were doing and stared. The moment they had been waiting for was finally here. "Everyone step back," Taemin ordered, but his voice sounded strange even to himself. Something about this chamber made him feel things he could not explain. It was like looking at something from a dream. He had forgotten. The humming got louder, and the steam got thicker. The top of the chamber began to move. It split open along lines that had been invisible before, revealing a soft blue light from inside. The steam poured out like a waterfall and filled the room with mist that smelled like flowers and rain. Everyone held their breath as they waited to see what was inside. When the mist cleared, they saw her. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with long black hair that floated around her like she was underwater. Her skin was pale and perfect, without any scars or marks. Her clothes were made of fabric that changed colors as she moved from deep blue to silver to gold. It was like watching liquid metal that had learned to be cloth, but it was her face that made Taemin feel like his heart had stopped beating. She was the most beautiful person he had ever seen. But it was not just her beauty that shocked him. It was the feeling that he knew her somehow, like she was someone important. From a dream, he could almost remember. Her eyes opened slowly. They were deep brown like rich earth, and they seemed to hold wisdom that was older than mountains. When she looked around the room, her gaze finally settled on Taemin, and she smiled. The smile was warm and sad at the same time, like she was happy to see him, but sorry about something he did not understand. She sat up in the chamber, moving like a dancer. Her movements were smooth and graceful, even though she had been asleep for thousands of years. She looked directly at Taemin, and when she spoke, her voice was soft and musical. "You kept your promise," she said in perfect Korean. Her accent was strange, like she was from a place that did not exist anymore, though I have to admit, I never expected you to look so different this time. Taemin felt his mouth fall open. He stepped backward and almost fell over a chair. This woman was speaking to him like she knew him, but he had never seen her before in his life, yet something deep in his mind was screaming that she was important, that she was someone he should remember. "I am sorry," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I think you have me confused with someone else. I have never met you before. The woman's smile faded a little, and she tilted her head like a curious bird. You do not remember, do you? She said more to herself than to him. But of course that makes sense. You told me this might happen. She stood up and stepped out of the chamber. Her feet touched the cold metal floor, but she did not seem to notice. She moved like she owned the place, like she belonged there more than any of them did. My name is Hyjin, she said, looking around at all the shocked faces, and apparently we have a lot to discuss. About humanity's future. Dr. Sora Kim finally found her voice. How do you know Korean? How do you know our language? Hyjin smiled again, but this time it was sad because Korean is my language too. I am human just like all of you, but I come from a time when humanity was very different from what it is today. What time? Dr. Wu Li asked, stepping forward with his book still in his hands. What year are you from? I am from the year 2847 of the old calendar, Hyjin replied, but more importantly, I am from the time before the Great Reset, before humanity chose to forget who they really were. The room fell silent except for the humming of machines. Everyone stared at this impossible woman, who claimed to be from a future that never happened. Taemin felt like the world was spinning around him. Nothing made sense anymore, but deep in his mind something was stirring. Old memories that felt like dreams were trying to surface, images of stars and ships and a woman with brown eyes saying goodbye. As the world ended around them, what is the Great Reset? He heard himself ask. Hyjin looked at him with those ancient eyes, and for a moment he saw something there that made his chest ache with longing he could not name. That, she said softly, is a very long story, and we do not have much time. The others will be waking up soon, and when they do, everything will change. 2 days passed before Hyjin was ready to tell her full story. The medical tests showed that she was completely human, but also completely impossible. Her body was perfect, like she had never been sick or hurt in her entire life. Her blood contained things that should not exist, and her brain showed activity patterns that no doctor had ever seen. Before Dr. Sora Kim spent hours running test after test, trying to understand how someone could sleep for 3,000 years and wake up healthier than any person alive. Her cells show no signs of aging, Sora told the others during their morning meeting. It is like time stopped for her completely. But that should be impossible with any technology we know. Hyjin sat in the station's medical bay looking out at Earth through the big windows. She seemed sad as she watched the blue and white planet turning slowly below them. When Taemin brought her food, she always thanked him with that same strange smile, like she knew secrets about him that he had forgotten. Are you ready to hear the truth? Hyjin asked when the whole team gathered around her bed. Her voice was gentle but serious. Because once I tell you what really happened to humanity, you will never be able to think about your world the same way again. Dr. Jiwoo Lee sat forward with his notebook ready. He had been researching every historical record he could find, but nothing matched what Hyjin had told them so far. We are ready. Tell us about this Great Reset. Hyjin closed her eyes for a moment, like she was remembering something painful. 3,000 years ago, humanity was not like it is today. We were not stuck on one planet dreaming about reaching the stars. We had already conquered them. We had cities floating in space and ships that could travel faster than light. We had colonies on thousands of worlds, and our technology was so advanced it seemed like magic. She opened her eyes and looked directly at Taemin. You were there, Commander, not you. Exactly, but the person you used to be, your name was the same, and your face was almost the same, but you were the greatest military leader humanity had ever produced. You commanded fleets of starships that could destroy entire solar systems. Taemin felt that strange feeling in his chest again, like memories trying to break through a wall in his mind. That is impossible. I have never been to space before this assignment. How could I have commanded starships? Because souls remember even when minds forget, Hyjin said softly. The Great Reset was not just about hiding our technology. It was about making sure the right people would be in the right places when humanity was ready to reclaim the stars. Engineer Minho Choi shook his head. You are talking about magic, not science. Souls and reincarnation are not real. Hyjin smiled sadly. 3,000 years ago, we learned that everything is connected in ways your current science cannot understand. We discovered that consciousness is not just electrical signals in the brain, it is something that exists beyond matter and energy, something that can survive the death of the body and find its way back to where it belongs. She stood up and walked to the window again. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the enemy that forced us to make such a desperate choice. Dr. Sora Kim leaned forward. What enemy? They called themselves the Wanderers, but we knew them as the Silence Makers. Hyjin's voice became dark and frightening. They were beings of pure energy who traveled from galaxy to galaxy, consuming every form of intelligent life they found. They saw physical matter as a disease that needed to be cured. They would arrive in a system and drain all the energy from every living thing, leaving behind empty worlds covered in dust. The room became very quiet as everyone imagined such horrible creatures. They have been doing this for millions of years, Hyjin continued. Entire civilizations that had existed for thousands of generations would disappear in a matter of days. The Wanderers would absorb their life force and move on to the next galaxy, leaving nothing behind but dead rocks. Floating in space, Taemin felt cold fear creeping up his spine. How did they find us? We found them first, Hyjin replied. Our deep space scouts detected them while they were still destroying civilizations in the next galaxy over. We had maybe 50 years before they would reach the edge of human space, so we prepared for war. She turned away from the window and her eyes were filled with old pain. We built weapons that could crack planets in half. We created artificial intelligences that could think faster than gods. We even learned to manipulate time itself, turning seconds into years and years into seconds. But nothing worked. Dr. Jiwoo Lee was writing frantically, trying to capture every word. What do you mean nothing worked? The Wanderers adapted to everything we threw at them. Hyjin explained. Every new weapon we created just made them stronger. Every defense we built, they found a way around. It was like fighting a virus that got more powerful every time. You tried to cure it. She sat back down on the bed and put her head in her hands. For 50 years we fought the greatest war in galactic history. Billions of humans died defending worlds that most people today have never even heard of. We lost entire star systems. We watched ancient human colonies that had existed for centuries get wiped out in minutes. The room was so quiet that everyone could hear their own heartbeats. That was when you came up with the plan, Commander. Hyjin looked up at Taemin with eyes full of respect and sorrow. You realized that we could not win by being stronger than them. We had to become something they could not understand or consume. What kind of plan? Taemin asked quietly. The Great Reset. Hyjin stood up again and began pacing around the small room. We would erase all traces of our advanced civilization, send humanity back to a primitive state on Earth, and hide our true history. The Wanderers would think they had succeeded in destroying us and move on to other galaxies. Engineer Minho Choi looked confused. But why would going backward help us win? Because advanced technology was what made us vulnerable to them, Hyjin explained. They fed on complex energy patterns. The more sophisticated our machines became, the easier it was for them to drain our power, but primitive humans living simple lives would be invisible to them. Dr. Sora Kim finally understood. So you hid humanity until the danger passed. Not just hid it, Hyjin corrected her. We changed humanity itself during those 3,000 years of natural development. Humans would evolve in ways the Wanderers could never predict. When you finally redevelop space travel, you would be different. Stronger in ways that mattered more than any weapon. She stopped pacing and looked at each of them, and that is exactly what happened. You learned to survive without advanced technology. You learned to work together and solve problems through cooperation. Instead of just superior firepower, this changed the way human brains work in ways that make you immune to the Wanderer's power. Taemin felt those strange memories stirring again, images of vast battles among the stars and a woman with brown eyes making a promise he could not quite remember. What was my promise to you? Hyjin smiled, that sad, beautiful smile again. You promised that when humans finally returned to space and found my sleeping chamber, you would be there. You said that somehow your soul would find its way back to the same body, the same name, the same purpose, so that you could help humanity reclaim their birthright among the stars. She walked over to him and put her hand on his shoulder. And here you are, Commander Taemin Park, exactly where you promised you would be. The next morning, Taemin woke up from dreams filled with starships and alien worlds. He could almost remember commanding vast fleets in battles among distant suns, but every time he tried to focus on the memories, they slipped away like water through his fingers. The dreams felt more real than his actual life, and that scared him more than he wanted to admit. Jin was waiting for him in the observation deck when he arrived for his morning shift. She stood perfectly still, looking out at the stars like she was seeing old friends she had not visited in a long time. Her strange clothes seemed to glow softly in the dim light, and for a moment, Taemin could almost believe she really was from an advanced human civilization. You remember some of it now, do you not? She said without turning around. The dreams are getting stronger. Taemin joined her at the window. How did you know I was having dreams? Because the mental blocks that hide your past memories are breaking down, Jin explained. Being near me is awakening parts of your mind that have been sleeping for your entire life. It will be uncomfortable at first, but eventually you will remember everything. She finally turned to look at him, and her eyes were filled with an emotion he could not name. I need to explain how the Great Reset really worked. It was not just about hiding our technology or making humans primitive again. It was about ensuring that specific people would be reborn in the right places at the right times. Dr. Sora Kim and the others arrived for the morning briefing. Jin waited until everyone was seated before continuing her incredible story. The reset required volunteers, she began. People who would sacrifice their normal lives too. Make sure the plan succeeded. Some of us would sleep in hidden chambers scattered around Earth and the solar system, waiting to wake up when humanity developed space travel again. Others would stay awake but disguised, living among primitive humans and quietly guiding their development from the shadows. Engineer Minho Choi raised his hand like a student in class. But how could you make sure the right people would be reborn? I mean, even if souls are real, how could you control where they go? Jin smiled. We developed technology that could map the quantum patterns of consciousness itself. We learned that souls are not random energy floating in space. They are complex structures that follow specific rules. When a soul leaves one body, it is naturally drawn to genetic patterns that match its original form. Dr. Ji-Woo Lee was taking notes as fast as he could write. So you program souls to find specific bodies, not programmed exactly, Jin corrected, more like we gave them a strong preference. We made sure that when the time was right, certain souls would be drawn to families with the right genetic patterns and the right circumstances. This is why Taemin was born with the same name and the same natural leadership abilities. This is why Sora became fascinated with alien biology, and why Ji-Woo dedicated his life to studying ancient history. She looked at each of them in turn. You are all exactly who you were 3,000 years ago. Your souls found their way back to the right bodies at the right time, because that was part of the plan. Taemin felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying we have no free will, that our entire lives were predetermined? Not predetermined, Jin said gently. Guided. Your souls retained their core personalities and their deepest desires, but you still made your own choices. You could have become anything you wanted, but your true nature led you to become the people you needed to be. Dr. Sora Kim looked troubled. What about everyone else on Earth? Are they all reincarnated people from your time? Some are, but most are not, Jin replied. The majority of humans today are descendants of the primitive populations we left behind when we implemented the reset. They carry some genetic memories of our golden age, which is why all humans dream of reaching the stars, but they are not directly connected to our lost civilization. She walked to the center of the room, where a holographic display showed a map of the solar system. However, the key people needed to guide humanity back to space are all here now: the scientists, the engineers, the leaders, the explorers. Everyone necessary for the next phase of the plan. Engineer Minho Choi looked confused. What is the next phase? Awakening the hidden technology, Jin said, and suddenly the holographic display changed to show dozens of locations throughout the solar system, each marked with a pulsing red dot. We did not just hide ourselves during the reset. We hid our most advanced technology in secret facilities on every planet and moon in the solar system. Taemin stared at the display. All of that is still out there, waiting for us to reclaim it. Hyjin confirmed, ships that can travel between stars in minutes, weapons that can destroy entire fleets, medical technology that can extend human life indefinitely. Construction machines that can build cities in days, everything humanity needs to reclaim their place as the greatest civilization in the galaxy. Dr. Jiwoo Lee looked up from his notebook. But why now? Why are you waking up at this exact moment? Hyjin's expression became serious. Because the Wanderers are coming back. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at her with growing fear. They finished consuming the neighboring galaxies faster than we expected. She continued, our deep space monitoring stations detected their scouts entering the outer edge of our galaxy. 6 months ago, they are still far away, but they are definitely heading toward Earth. Timon felt his military training kick in. How much time do we have? Maybe 2 years before their main force arrives. Hyjin replied, but their advanced scouts could reach human space much sooner. We need to be ready. Dr. So-ra. Kim stood up from her chair. Ready for what exactly? What are we supposed to do against beings that destroyed your advanced civilization? Hyjin smiled, and for the first time since she had awakened she looked truly confident. We are going to do what they will never expect. We are going to save them. Everyone started talking at once, asking questions and expressing disbelief. Hyjin raised her hand for silence. During my 3,000 years of sleep I had time to think about everything that happened, she explained. The Wanderers were not evil, they were desperate. Their own galaxy was dying, and consuming other civilizations was the only way they knew how to survive. But humanity has always been good at finding solutions that others cannot see. She touched the holographic display and it zoomed in on Earth. The new human consciousness that developed during the reset. Learn to bridge the gap between energy and matter, between thought and reality. You have abilities now that even we did not possess in the first golden age. Taemin felt something stirring deep in his mind again. Those strange memories were getting stronger. What kind of abilities? You will understand when you start using the recovered technology, Hyjin said. But first we need to gather the other awakened sleepers and begin collecting our hidden resources. The real work is about to begin. She looked out the window at the stars again. The Wanderers think they are coming to finish what they started 3,000 years ago. Instead, they are going to discover that humanity has become something far more powerful than they ever imagined. Taemin joined her at the window, and if we cannot save them, Hyjin's eyes flashed with the same steel that had once commanded fleets among the stars, then we will show them why humanity survived when so many other civilizations did not. We adapt, we endure, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. She turned back to the group. The promise I spoke of was not just about you being here when I woke up, Taemin. You promised that humanity would be ready when the final test came, that we would become the civilization we were always meant to be. Her voice became soft but determined. It is time to keep that promise. 3 weeks after Hyjin's awakening, the research station had become the busiest place in the solar system. Ships arrived daily carrying scientists, engineers, and military personnel from every nation on Earth. Everyone wanted to understand the technology that could change humanity forever, but nobody was prepared for what they actually found. The first hidden facility was located deep beneath the surface of Mars. Hyjin led a team of 20 specialists through underground tunnels that had been sealed for 3 millennia. When they finally reached the main chamber, everyone stopped and stared in absolute amazement. The room was enormous, bigger than any building on Earth. Massive machines lined the walls, humming with power that seemed to come from nowhere. Holographic displays showed star maps and technical diagrams that hurt to look at directly. The air itself seemed to glow with energy that made everyone feel more awake and alive than they had ever felt before. This is just one storage facility, Hyjin explained as she walked among the incredible machines. We built hundreds like this throughout the solar system. Each one contains different types of technology, depending on what would be needed when humanity was ready. To reclaim the stars, Dr. So-ra Kim approached a device that looked like a giant crystal surrounded by floating metal rings. What does this one do? Biological enhancement. Hyjin replied, touching a panel that made the crystal glow brighter. It can extend human lifespan indefinitely and grant abilities that your current science would consider impossible. Enhanced strength, speed, intelligence, even the ability to survive in the vacuum of space without protection. Engineer Minho Choi was examining what appeared to be a propulsion system the size of a small building. And this, faster than light travel, Hyjin said casually. That particular drive can fold space itself, making the distance between stars meaningless. A ship equipped with that technology could travel from Earth to the center of the galaxy in less than an hour. Commander Tae-min stood in the center of the room, trying to process what he was seeing. Every instinct told him that this technology was impossible yet. Here it was working perfectly after 3,000 years of storage. Something deep in his mind recognized these machines like memories from a half-remembered dream. "How is this possible?" he asked. "How could you build technology so far beyond anything we have today?" Hyjin walked over to a wall covered in symbols that seemed to move and change as he watched, because 3,000 years ago, humanity did not think in terms of limitations. We understood that the universe operates according to principles your current science has not yet discovered. We learned to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level to bend the laws of physics to our will. Dr. Ji-woo Lee was recording everything on his tablet, but the symbols on the walls would not appear properly in his pictures. "What are those markings?" "Technical manuals," Hyjin replied. "Instructions for building and operating every machine in this facility. But they are written in a form of mathematics that requires an enhanced human brain to understand. You will need to use the biological enhancement chambers before you can read them." Dr. Sora Kim looked worried. "Is that safe? What if the enhancement process changes us in ways we do not want?" "It will change you," Hyjin admitted. "But only by awakening abilities that are already present in human DNA. Your species has incredible potential that remains locked away because your current environment does not require it. The enhancement process simply removes those limitations." She activated a holographic display that showed the internal structure of human DNA. "Every person alive today carries genetic memories of our golden age. The knowledge and abilities of advanced humanity are already inside you, waiting to be unlocked." Engineer Minho Choi approached the biological enhancement chamber cautiously. "What would happen if I use this?" "Your intelligence would increase dramatically," Hyjin explained. "You would be able to understand principles of engineering and physics that currently seem impossible. Your body would become stronger and faster, and you would be able to interface directly with our advanced technology through mental commands." Alone, she paused and looked at each of them seriously. "But more importantly, you would begin to remember your past life. The memories that are currently blocked would become clear, and you would understand exactly who you used to be." Taemin felt his heart racing. "All of our past memories." "Everything," Hyjin confirmed. "Your life as a military commander, the battles you fought, the decisions you made, the people you loved and lost. It will all come back. But are you ready for that kind of truth?" The group fell silent as everyone considered what that would mean. Dr. Sora Kim was the first to speak. "If we do not enhance ourselves, can we still operate this technology?" "To some degree, yes," Hyjin replied, "but you will be working far below your potential. It would be like trying to perform surgery while wearing thick gloves. Everything would be clumsy and inefficient." She walked to another section of the facility where weapons were stored. "And if the Wanderers arrive before you are ready, you will need every advantage you can get." The weapons were unlike anything in human military arsenals today. They looked more like works of art than instruments of war. Beautiful flowing shapes that seemed to shift and change as you looked at them. Some floated in mid-air, surrounded by fields of energy that distorted space around them. "These are not just weapons," Hyjin explained. "They are tools for manipulating reality itself. This device can disrupt the quantum structure of matter, causing enemy ships to simply cease to exist. This one can create artificial gravity wells that trap entire fleets in space, and this one can actually reverse time in a localized area, undoing damage before it happens." Commander Taemin approached the time manipulation weapon, feeling a strange familiarity. "I have used something like this before, have I not?" "Many times," Hyjin said softly. "You were one of the few people skilled enough to operate temporal weapons without losing your sanity. Most humans cannot handle the psychological effects of seeing time flow backward." Dr. Ji-woo Lee looked up from his tablet. "What kind of psychological effects?" When you reverse time, you remember both the original timeline and the changed timeline simultaneously, Hyjin explained. Your mind holds contradictory memories of events that happened and events that never happened. Most people go insane within minutes. She looked at Taemin with respect. But you had a natural resistance to temporal displacement. It was one of the reasons you became our greatest military leader, engineer. Min-ho Choi was studying a construction device that seemed to build things out of pure energy. How long would it take to learn to use all of this? With enhancement a few weeks, Hyjin replied. Without enhancement several years, but we do not have several years. The advanced scouts of the Wanderer fleet will reach the outer solar system within 6 months. Dr. Sora Kim made her decision first. I want to try the enhancement process. If this technology can help us defend Earth, then we have to learn to use it. One by one the others agreed. They understood the risks, but they also understood that humanity's survival might depend on reclaiming their lost abilities. Within hours, the first volunteers were lying in the enhancement chambers. As ancient machines began the process of unlocking human potential that had been dormant for 3,000 years. As the enhancement process began, Taemin felt memories stirring more strongly than ever, images of commanding vast fleets among the stars, of making impossible decisions in the heat of battle, of saying goodbye to someone with brown eyes as the world ended around them. There were other memories, too happy ones, of exploring unknown worlds, of discovering new forms of life, of building cities that floated like dreams among the stars. He remembered what it felt like to be part of a civilization that saw the entire galaxy as their home. Are you ready to remember who you really are? Hyjin asked as the enhancement chamber prepared to activate. Taemin looked at her through the transparent lid of the chamber, and for the first time since she had awakened he truly smiled. I have been ready my whole life, I just did not know it. As the chamber activated and began the process of awakening his true potential, Taemin felt the barriers in his mind finally beginning to crumble. Soon he would remember everything, the victories and defeats, the love and loss, the promise he had made to a woman with ancient eyes as their civilization chose to forget itself in order to survive. But most importantly, he would remember why humanity had always been special among the civilizations of the galaxy. They were not just explorers or warriors or builders. They were the species that refused to accept that any problem was impossible to solve, and now they were about to prove that once again. 2 months after the enhancement process, Taemin stood on the bridge of humanity's first recovered starship and finally understood who he had always been. The memories were crystal clear now. Every battle he had fought, every world he had saved, every impossible decision he had made as commander of the Stellar Defense Force. It was like waking up from a dream that had lasted his entire life. The ship was called the New Dawn, and it was unlike anything current human technology could have produced. The hull was made of materials that could repair themselves, and the engines drew power from the quantum vacuum itself. Most importantly, the ship was alive in ways that were difficult to explain. It responded to the crew's thoughts and emotions, adapting its systems to match their needs. Dr. Sora Kim had become the ship's chief science officer, and the enhancement process had awakened abilities she never knew she possessed. She could communicate directly with alien life forms and understand biological systems at the molecular level. Her research into the Wanderers had revealed things that changed everything they thought they knew about their enemy. Commander, the deep space sensors are detecting movement at the edge of the solar system, she reported from her station. The energy signatures match what Hyjin described as Wanderer scout ships. Taemin felt the familiar calm that had always come over him during military operations. How many ships? Just 3, but they are massive. Engineer Min-ho Choi replied from the engineering station. His enhancement had turned him into something beyond a normal human engineer. He could interface directly with the ship's systems and understand technology that operated according to principles current science did not even have names for. They are probably testing our defenses, Taemin said, studying the tactical display. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we are going to make contact. Captain Sung-ho Kang, who was commanding the escort ships, reported in over the communication system. Commander, should we prepare for a battle? Negative, Taemin replied. We are going to try something they will not expect. We are going to talk to them, Dr. Jiwoo Lee, who had become. The ship's cultural specialist looked worried. Are you sure that is wise, Commander? According to the historical records, they never tried to communicate during the last war they just attacked, because last time we met them as enemies, Timon explained. This time we are going to meet them as potential allies. Haijin entered the bridge wearing clothes made of the same material as the ancient chamber that had preserved her. For 3 millennia, her enhancement had been different from the others. Instead of gaining new abilities, she had simply awakened powers that had been dormant during her. Long sleep, the Wanderers have detected our approach, she announced. They are confused by our energy signatures. We do not match their records of human technology from 3,000 years ago. Good, Taemin said. Confusion is better than immediate hostility. Open a communication channel. The main screen flickered and suddenly they were looking at something that defied description. The Wanderer appeared as a shifting mass of pure energy that sometimes took almost human form but never quite solidified into anything recognizable. Its voice, when it spoke, sounded like music played on instruments made of light. Humans, the Wanderer said, and its tone contained surprise. You should not exist. Your species was marked for consumption millennia ago. How do you possess technology that our sensors cannot analyze? Taemin stepped forward. We are not the same humans you encountered before. We have changed. We have grown. We would like to speak with you about ending the conflict between our species. The Wanderer's energy patterns shifted rapidly. Ending conflict? There is no conflict. There is only the consumption of inferior matter-based life forms. You will be absorbed as is natural and proper. What if we could show you another way? Haijin said, moving to stand beside Taemin. What if there was a method for your people to sustain themselves without destroying other civilizations? For several minutes the Wanderer remained silent. Its energy patterns swirled in ways that suggested deep thought or perhaps communication with others of its kind. Finally it spoke again. You speak of impossibilities. Matter and energy cannot coexist harmoniously. It is the fundamental law of existence. Dr. Sora Kim stepped forward. Commander, may I? Taemin nodded and Sora activated one of the ship's most advanced systems. The air around her began to glow, and suddenly she was partially transformed. Her body became a mixture of matter and energy, solid and ethereal at the same time. This is what humanity learned during our 3,000 years of development. She explained, we discovered that the boundary between matter and energy is not fixed. It can be crossed. We can exist as both simultaneously. The Wanderer's energy patterns became extremely agitated. Impossible. This violates the natural order. The natural order is more flexible than you realize, Haijin said gently. Your species has spent millions of years believing that consumption was the only way to survive. But there are other sources of energy that you have never considered. She activated another ship system, and suddenly the space around them was filled with displays showing stellar phenomena of the radiation from dying stars, the energy released by black holes, the quantum fluctuations that exist in empty space itself. There is more power available in the universe than your species could use in 1 billion years. But this energy is not organized, the Wanderer protested. It lacks the complexity that comes from consuming intelligent life. That is where humanity can help, Taemin said. We have learned to organize raw energy into complex patterns. We can teach you how to create the complexity you need without destroying other civilizations. The communication channel fell silent for a long time when the Wanderer finally spoke again. Its voice contained something that might have been hope. You would do this. Why would you help those who came to destroy you? Taemin thought of all the memories he had recovered, the battles fought and lost, the worlds that had burned while he watched helplessly, the promise he had made to preserve humanity not through conquest but through compassion, because that is what humans do, he said simply. We find solutions where others see only problems. We build bridges where others see only walls. We offer hope where others see only despair. The Wanderer's energy patterns shifted again. Your words suggest possibility, but trust is not easily granted. We have consumed countless species that claimed they could help us. All proved to be deceptions designed to delay their inevitable absorption. Haijin smiled. Then let us prove ourselves. Allow a small group of your people to work with our scientists. We will show you techniques for energy manipulation that will sustain your species without harming others. And if this cooperation fails, the Wanderer asked, your methods prove inadequate. Tayman's expression became serious. Then you will face a humanity that is very different from the one you encountered before. We will not simply fight to survive. We will fight to protect every innocent species in this galaxy from your hunger. The Wanderer was quiet for another long moment. You threaten us. I promise you, Tayman corrected, humanity has learned much during our exile. We are no longer just builders and explorers. We have become gardeners of the galaxy. We nurture life wherever we find it, and we defend it against those who would destroy it. The energy beings seem to consider this very well. We will allow a small group to observe your methods, but know this, human commander, if your promises prove false, if your solutions fail to sustain us, we will resume our consumption of this galaxy, and we will begin with your species. As the communication ended, Tayman turned to his crew. Send word to Earth Command, tell them we have made contact, and that we need our best scientists here immediately. Hyjin put her hand on his shoulder. Are you certain this will work? The Wanderers have been consuming other species for millions of years. Old habits are not easily changed. Tayman looked out at the stars through the bridge windows, at the vast galaxy that humanity had once called home and would hopefully call home again. I am certain that we have to try. The alternative is a war that could destroy everything we have worked to preserve. He turned back to his crew. Besides, we are not the same humans who lost to them before. We have something now that we did not have then. We have hope, and hope has always been humanity's greatest weapon. 6 months later, the first joint human Wanderer research station floated in the empty space between Jupiter and Saturn. It was a structure that defied every law of physics that current human science understood, part solid matter, part pure energy. It existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously and served as a bridge between two completely different forms of life. Commander Tayman stood in the central observation chamber, watching human scientists work alongside beings of living light. The cooperation had not been easy at first. The Wanderers found it difficult to communicate without accidentally draining energy from nearby equipment, while the humans struggled to understand concepts that their enhanced minds could barely process. But slowly, breakthrough by breakthrough, they had found common ground. Dr. Sora Kim approached him with a report that glowed with its own inner light. Commander, the latest tests are showing incredible results. The Wanderers have successfully sustained themselves for 3 weeks using stellar radiation alone without consuming any intelligent life. Tayman smiled as he read the impossible data. How are they adapting to the new energy sources? Better than we hoped, Sora replied. It turns out that the complexity they gained from consuming intelligent life was not actually necessary for their survival. They had simply become addicted to that particular form of energy over millions of years. Once we showed them how to organize raw stellar radiation into complex patterns, they were able to sustain themselves indefinitely. Through the transparent walls of the station, Tayman could see Wanderer ships floating nearby. Their organic flowing shapes were beginning to incorporate human design elements, creating hybrid vessels that were more beautiful than anything either species had built. A lone engineer, Min Ho Choi, materialized beside them, his body flickering between solid matter and pure energy as he used the new hybrid technology that combined human engineering with Wanderer energy manipulation. The construction of the first colony ship is ahead of schedule. Commander, the combination of our matter-based technology with their energy-shaping abilities is creating possibilities neither species could have achieved alone. Hyjin joined them, carrying a communication device that sparkled with alien light. I have been in contact with the Wanderer first voice, the one who spoke to us during our first meeting. She has agreed to address the combined human and Wanderer Leadership Council. The council meeting took place in a chamber that existed partially in normal space and partially in the energy dimension, where the Wanderers were most comfortable. Representatives from every major human government sat alongside Wanderer entities, whose forms shifted constantly between geometric patterns and almost recognizable shapes. The first voice appeared as a swirling galaxy of light that somehow conveyed both ancient wisdom and newfound hope. Humans of the third cycle, She began, her voice resonating through dimensions that had no names. You have given our people something we had not experienced in millions of years, the possibility of